Have you ever met a man who barely posts online? Yet, somehow, everyone still feels his presence. He doesn't show off. He doesn't even explain. He just moves quietly. And somehow, that quiet hits louder than every look at me post in your feed. We live in the noisiest time in history. Every second, someone's shouting their highlight reel, their dinner, their trips, their smiles. The internet is like a party where everyone is talking, but no one is listening. Yet, in that chaos, a certain type of man stands out by doing the opposite. He doesn't post, he observes. He lets his silence do the talking. Because today, silence is no longer a weakness, it's a statement. When he goes quiet, it doesn't mean he's gone, it means he's focused. It means he's watching a world that forgot how to move without an audience. Close your eyes for a second. Imagine scrolling through your feed, faces you barely know, oversharing every thought, every meal, every mood swing. Now, picture a different kind of presence, a man you rarely see online, but everyone remembers when he walks into a room. That is the power of silence. His energy feels heavy but calm, grounded but mysterious. He's not posting his life because he's busy living it. And while the world is busy proving itself, he's busy building himself. People don't realize it, but silence has a sound, the sound of self-control, the sound of a man who's done performing for people who don't even matter. Because when you stop posting every move, you start moving with purpose. He's not disconnecting from the world. He's just disconnecting from the noise. And in a culture that treats attention like currency, his silence is the only thing you can't buy. That's where the story begins. With the men who don't need to post to prove they exist. The men who found power in privacy and peace in disappearing. The ones who walk through this digital world unseen, but undeniable. Because their silence isn't a void, it's a warning. Privacy used to be normal. Now it's suspicious. Post less, and people start wondering if something is wrong. Stay quiet, and they assume you're hiding something. But maybe the truth is, he's just protecting something. See, real privacy isn't about secrecy. It's about ownership. It's about deciding who gets access to your peace. When a man keeps his life off social media, it's not because he's afraid to share. It's because he's finally understanding the value of what can't be seen. Every post, every story, every caption, it's a small trade. You give the world a piece of your life, and in return, you lose a little control over how that life is seen. Most men don't realize that, but the quiet ones do. They've watched the world turn every personal moment into public property. They've seen how a happy photo can become gossip, how a small success turns into competition, and how a stranger starts forming opinions that they never lived. So, they stop giving the world a show. Psychologists call it boundary control, the ability to decide what stays sacred and what goes public. And in a time where everyone's addicted to exposure, men who master privacy are becoming rare breeds because privacy builds power. It gives you space to think clearly, move quietly, and live without the constant need for approval. When a man stops posting every win, every loss, every emotion, he starts living for himself again. He's not performing, he's processing. He's not seeking applause, he's seeking peace. And that peace changes him. He becomes harder to reach, but easier to respect. Because the moment you stop showing everything, you stop needing everyone. A man with privacy becomes unpredictable. Not because he's hiding, but because no one knows what to expect next. And that unpredictability is what makes him magnetic. While everyone else is broadcasting for attention, he's building in silence. And by the time the world notices, it's too late to catch up. That's the power of privacy. It doesn't just protect you from noise. It protects your direction, your focus, and your identity. Because when the world can't see your next move, it can't stop it either. There's a reason the strongest men don't announce their moves. They're too busy making it. Disappearing doesn't always mean walking away. Sometimes it just means walking differently. No noise, no explanations, no need to prove anything. In a world obsessed with attention, silence is self-mastery because it's easy to perform when everyone is watching, but it takes discipline to grow when no one is. Psychologists call it delayed validation, the ability to stay patient while the rest of the world needs constant approval. And that's what separates men who scroll from men who build. Every post is a temptation to explain, to prove, to show progress before it's even ready. But a man who learns to disappear learns to protect his momentum. He knows that growth doesn't happen in the spotlight. It happens in the shadows. It happens when no one is watching it and no one is clapping. Because here's the truth. If you can't move without being seen, you'll never move when it really matters. The quiet man understands that attention is a trap. The more you chase it, the less of yourself you keep. Every post becomes a small performance, and every like becomes a little leash. So he breaks that pattern. He goes ghost. He gets focused. He lets results speak instead of captions. You'll notice something powerful about these men. They're calm when others are panicking, present when others post, and grounded when others chase relevance. Because when you disappear from the crowd, you reappear to yourself. That's the discipline about disappearing, knowing when to step back so you can step forward stronger. And the truth is, you don't lose people when you go quiet. You just find out who is really listening. So when he fades from timelines, it's not rejection, it's refinement. He's sharpening his focus, training his patience, and protecting the version of himself that's still in progress. He doesn't owe the world updates. He owes himself evolution. There's something about a man you can't fully read. He walks in, says little, and somehow everyone adjusts their energy. That's the mystery effect. You don't know what he's thinking. You don't know what he's planning. And because of that, you can't stop wondering. In a world where everyone explains themselves, a man who stays quiet becomes a question mark. And people are drawn to questions they can't even answer. Mystery isn't about games, it's about value. Because the less you reveal, the more your presence means. Psychologists call it the scarcity principle. What's rare feels more important. And in a generation that overshares privacy became luxury. That's why when he doesn't post, it doesn't make him invisible. It makes him rare. People start to wonder, where's he been? What's he doing? How's he doing so well without needing attention? They start filling in the blanks with imagination. And that imagination builds attraction. Because mystery forces people to focus on energy instead of image. They stop watching what you show and start feeling what you carry. He could walk into a room wearing silence like a suit and still command more attention than the loudest man there. Because confidence doesn't shout, it radiates. And the truth is, when people can't read you, they respect you differently. They lean in. They pay attention. Most men try to impress through presence. The mysterious man impresses through absence. Every time he withholds something, a thought, a story, a photo, he increases his worth in people's minds. Not because he's pretending to be deep, but because he's not wasting depth on everyone. And that's the secret women will never admit, but always feel. The man who doesn't post, who doesn't overshare, feels like he knows something they don't. It's not arrogance, it's aura. He's not trying to be mysterious. He just became that way by protecting his peace. That's why his silence speaks louder than most people's content. It makes you pay attention to the gaps. It makes you notice how still he really is. And stillness, in a world that never stops moving, feels powerful because mystery isn't about hiding. It's about choosing who deserves to see. Here's what most people don't understand. Silence isn't about cutting the world off. It's about tuning it out long enough to hear yourself again. The man who doesn't post isn't hiding. He's protecting his focus because focus is fragile. And in a world built to break it, discipline becomes survival. The average person checks their phone over 100 times a day. Every ping, every scroll, every post. Another tiny distraction pulling you away from the life you're trying to build. But the man who stays off the stage, he's not being antisocial. He's being intentional. He knows that energy leaks through attention, and attention is a new currency. So he spends it wisely. When he stops giving his time to noise, his thoughts starts to get sharper. His days start to get longer. And his peace starts to come back. Because quiet doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means everything is happening, just not for the audience. Psychologists call this attention residue. Every time you switch from focus to distraction, a small part of your mind stays behind. And those small links of attention slowly drain your potential. That's why the quiet ones seem calmer. They're not multitasking their purpose. They're married to it. A man who protects his focus builds boundaries, not walls, boundaries. There's a difference. Walls keep people out, boundaries keep peace in. He doesn't argue online, doesn't chase approval, doesn't explain his silence. He doesn't need to, because peace doesn't need proof. You'll notice men like this don't talk about cutting people off. They just start walking quieter paths. They don't delete everyone. They just stop giving access to everyone. And that's the difference between being cold and being clear. He's not ignoring the world. He's choosing what deserves his reaction. Because when everything demands attention, the smartest thing you can do is protect it. That's not arrogance. That's emotional maturity. And that's what makes his silence feels powerful. Because the truth is, a man's focus is sacred. And every time he chooses peace over performance, he's reminding the world that not everything real needs to be revealed. There comes a point in every man's life where peace matters more than presence. He used to post for connection. Now he craves quiet for clarity. Because when you spend years trying to be seen, you forget what it feels like to just be. Peace isn't the absence of noise. It's the strength to not need it. And the man who stops performing online, they're not giving up on people. They're just done giving themselves away for free. They've learned that approval is a bottomless pit. You can feed it every day and it still won't fill you. So they choose to starve it instead. That's when everything shifts. They stopped moving for attention and started moving for purpose. They stopped explaining and started evolving. Because peace grows where performance dies. And when a man finds that peace, you'll notice something different about him. He's slower, but he's sharper. Calmer, but deeper. He's not trying to impress anyone anymore. He's trying to become someone he can respect. That's the quiet transformation most people never see because it doesn't happen on camera. It happens in the dark when the phone is off, when the world isn't watching. And that's what makes it real. Because when you stop performing, you start healing. You start remembering what happiness feels like when it's not staged. You start noticing the small things again. The sound of rain, the warmth of sunlight, the freedom of not explaining everything. That's when men realize the real flex isn't being known. It's being peaceful in a world that profits from your anxiety. And peace? Peace is expensive. It costs isolation, boundaries, and patience. But what you get in return? It's freedom. Because when a man stops posting, he doesn't disappear. He reappears somewhere stronger, inside himself, with peace that doesn't need an audience. The funny thing about silence is it always tells the truth. You can fake confidence, you can fake smiles, but you can't fake peace. And the men who don't post anymore, they've learned that peace doesn't live in a comment section. It lives in how you carry yourself when no one is watching. Because when the world forgets your name for a while, that's when you remember who you actually are. He stopped sharing his every move and started moving with intention. He stopped chasing reactions and started chasing results. He stopped being visible and started becoming valuable. And maybe that's the lesson for all of us, that disappearing doesn't always mean being gone. Sometimes it means being reborn, because silence has a way of building something applause never could. He no longer needs to prove anything. He's living the proof. And that quiet, that stillness, that peace, that's not emptiness. That's presence. You'll know you've reached it when your life starts feeling full again, even when no one is watching. When your days feel grounded, your circle gets smaller and your mind starts breathing again. That's not loneliness. That's alignment. Because a man who finds peace in silence has already found something louder than attention. He's found himself. And in a world that can't stop talking, that might be the quietest revolution of all. So, the next time you see a man who doesn't post, don't mistake his silence for absence. Understand for what it truly is, a man protecting the parts of him that the world doesn't deserve to touch. It's been your girl Remi Rene here. I'll see you guys in my next video.